Welcome to the ACE Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that Lee, you're here with me. This is here for those of you who don't know. This is really where we help professionals succeed and thrive both personally and professionally. And this is where I get to showcase experts or aces in their field and leverage their knowledge really to support this whole community of people here just trying to get better in life and trying to improve. And so I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here, Lee. Lee Payton, founder of Lee Payton LLC. And really, actually, if you go to his LinkedIn page, he's got a whole host of things. But I met you through Big Click Energy, where you support me with Corey on helping me build out the ACE community and recordings like this, just supporting me and help produce and help get the ACE brand and even myself out to more people. And so thank you, Lee, for that. He's the co-host of the Strat Show, where he shares marketing business and maybe a little bit of life advice and potentially some PG-13 rated dialogue.
Worse than that. It's worse than that, but that's very kind of you. Yeah.
That's right. You share what works in the marketplace, though. It's really about helping people. And he's involved in really several projects, from your producer, a partner, CMO, a copywriter, at least from what I've known. I don't know how you do it, right? But there's the phrase out there. It says, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Lee, that's certainly true with Lee. And as the son of a military father and brother of two ex-military men, Lee's military background is something that makes me even more proud to be teaming with him. I mean, you can see I'm quite a patriot. I love our country. Fun fact, just learned this. Lee is a supporter and adopter of manatees. You're going to show it. There you go. I knew it was coming, didn't you?
My computer cover. That's just one small thing that I have managed.
I can't wait to talk to you a little bit about that. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. So be prepared, everyone, for a fresh perspective. Lee has got a diverse history, and he's going to have a really great perspective. So have an open mind, be willing to take action on some of the things that you might learn, and think about how the ideas that we're going to share and strategies that we're going to share with you can be applied to your own brand, your own business, whether you are part of a company, an individual contributor, a leader, or you have your own business that you're trying to kind of really build. And so I'm looking forward to chatting. Thanks for being here, Lee.
Thanks for having me, David. And I just want to point out to whoever's watching this, I promise I did not intentionally wear a shirt to match my sunburned face. So hopefully I'm coming through while the recording. I've just noticed that now. I'm like, oh no.
No, you look great. You look great. You look great. Well, tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are now. I mean, from your history, I mean, there's a lot going on, but is there a Reader's Digest version that we could talk about? Kind of how did you get to where you are now with Big Click Energy and what you're doing, producing, in all these roles that you have?
Sure, and I'll try to keep this brief. I enlisted in the military when I was 18, so I'll skip past that part for now. As I was getting out of the Marine Corps, 9/11 had happened the year before. So the federal government was hiring anybody who basically wanted a job at that point. And I was like, well, I need a job. So I ended up working for the U.S. Marshal Service for 16 years, and then my 4 years with the Marine Corps counted towards retirement. So I was able to retire early from that. So I spent essentially my 18 to 22 in the Marines, and then from that point until my late 30s as a federal marshal. And it's not like any other job, what you see on TV. It's about 90% BS and administrative work and about 10% fun. So we did have some fun times, but it wasn't as, people hear that and they're like, oh, that must have been great. I'm like, it's the government. It's not that great. So when I had an opportunity to retire early, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I was in South Florida at the time. I was out of the Fort Lauderdale office. And a lot of other law enforcement retirees down there were doing private investigative work. So I thought, well, that's perfect. I'll just roll from one job into the next, into the private sector. So I just did that by default, even though, law enforcement, I'm patriotic and I love cops and, I support all of them, but I'm not a law enforcement type guy. It just wasn't always a perfect fit for me. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my thing. So transitioning over to the private sector, going into private investigative work, it was the same thing. I was in court all the time. I was, following people around. As you can imagine, the Miami area, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens down there. A lot of it's insurance fraud. So again, it sounds like a cool job, but a lot of it was boredom. And I did that for quite a while. Well, COVID hit, and everything went away because the court systems closed down and nobody was working cases anymore. So then the money dried up there, and I created a small business I knew somebody who owned a lab, a laboratory, I'm trying to think, a pathology lab in Broward County. So I said, well, all these rich people are in town. that have yachts that want to go to the Bahamas and get out of here because of the COVID restrictions. So I will take the nasal swabs to the boat, test their entire crew, and test the captain so they can clear them for travel. So I made up a name, COVID Concierge, whatever it worked. I created a small business that lasted for the year during COVID.
Wow.
And during that time, I was like, I really enjoyed just the management of a small business, dealing with all the HIPAA compliance and all the red tape and all that. It was different from anything I had done before, and I realized there's a lot more money to be made or a lot more opportunity out there versus just being in one lane, versus being in the military, law enforcement, investigative lane. There are other opportunities. During that time, I learned how to build my own website. It wasn't a great one, but I learned a little bit about marketing doing that. Well, then fast forward about a year, and who I'm still with now, but she was leaving. She wanted to go travel the world and work remotely. And I thought, well, I kind of want to do that too, obviously. She already had plans to leave before we got together. She had a projection to go. So I'm like, okay, well now if we're going to stay together, I have to find a way to either go with her or be remote enough that I can visit her for lengths of time wherever she's at. Mm-hmm. So then I thought, well, what can I do? Just like anybody else during COVID, I Googled, what can I do as a remote job with no college degree and limited skills? And copywriting came up. So, okay, let me learn how to do this. Sounds great. I got into that. And then maybe 9 months later, OpenAI came out. ChatGPT. So going from investigative work to the medical thing to copywriting was just a series of twists and turns of me trying to get a foothold. I'm like, how do I maintain this? How do I have enough money for travel and pay all the bills? And then of course, as soon as I started making money as a copywriter, AI comes out and it starts knocking those jobs down. So how I got to where I am now, where I end up, producing and editing videos, helping people with SEO, doing the CMO part, how I got here was out of necessity. Because in the past, and this is a common phrase, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but a common phrase is the riches are in the niches. You focus on one path. You focus on one thing. I'm going to be a copywriter. I'm going to be a meta ads specialist. I'm going to be a website designer. And that used to be very true, and it still is for some people, that you specialize. Well, I ended up doing a little bit of everything because I could see the writing on the wall that AI is going to start soaking up all these little positions. So I ended up trying everything, figured out what I liked and what I didn't like. As it turns out, I hate web design, I hate SEO, but I learned a little bit enough about it to know that I didn't want to do it, but I could also manage somebody who did do it. So I could at least relate to what they were telling me when they would say, hey, I did this today or whatever. So I got to where I am just for basically a series of failures or side steps to kind of work my way up to the position I'm at. So I do all of these things and I manage all of these things just because of that, because of the industry. And I draw over, I think my last position with the Marshal Service, I had 74 people that reported to me directly. And I started to get very good at dealing with personalities, government employees especially. Like Sunday afternoon, I'm not coming to work tomorrow. Well, 10 people would do that, and I had to fill those positions and all the coordination that's involved in that. And I got pretty good at multitasking and organizing. So it's a culmination of all those previous things and then trying to learn new things that put me in a position now where I'm not really a master of anything in particular, but I can look at a lot of moving parts and I can direct people in their roles. So that's how that's the shortest version I can give you of how I got from the military to the CMO role I'm in now.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, and I mean, it seems like I'm glad you've got this ability to go remote and your girlfriend and your relationship is good, because I mean, I feel like a couple of days ago you were in Oklahoma and then another day you were in Texas. And where are you now right now?
We have an RV and we are living in an RV park in downtown Austin. We're here for 3 more weeks, then we're going back to Detroit. The reason I bring that up is because I'm in the same RV park that Matthew McConaughey used to live in. It's full of Airstreams and it's one of those real trendy, kind of goofy places. It's probably the only RV park in the middle of a city. So I love it here, but it's expensive and it's hot. So, but yes, to your point about travel, it's, and it's a whole nother show talking about travel, but that comes with its own host of things too. Because people look at my life and they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could travel around and do all these things. And sometimes I look at somebody who lives in a town with a house and I'm like, I just wish I was stable. It didn't have to keep, because things come up on the road and you have to keep adjusting. Anyway, yes. But yeah, we are traveling full time and it's a lot of fun, but the grass is never greener, right? You're always a trade-off for some other set of problems.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Well, okay, so that was a very, very good, concise kind of encapsulation of.
Caffeinated.
Oh, there we
So
go.
that's where I came.
And so, well, then I believe none of us get to where we are alone. For example, the only reason I'm able to even have this conversation with you is because I met you and I met Corey, who gave me a different way of looking at how I could get my name out and my brand out. And so, I would consider you team members and also mentors in some way because you have knowledge that I just don't have. And so you said you are a master of nothing. I think you phrased it, I'm not a master, but you're really good at a bunch of things. But I imagine you had mentors. You had someone who taught you. And how did you come to this decision? Like, how do you make your decisions about where you want to go and who mentored you? Do you have any mentors? I imagine you do.
Yeah, this is a tough one because if I'm just looking for knowledge or direction, I mean, there's always the big ones out there. I go to YouTube because you can learn anything on YouTube these days.
Yes.
Now, so I don't want to say YouTube is a mentor, but boy, it has been I can't figure something out. It could be just non-work related. Like I have to clean the air conditioner on my RV and I had to go there. So
it's a go-to. I mean, I looked at trying to figure out if Bahrain was a country when I was playing a game with my boys last night, and Google's, perfect.
Yeah,
it is a country.
100%. Okay, I thought so. Yeah. And it's tricky. There's been a whole series of people. I joined, and I recommend this of anybody starting off, whatever you're doing. And a lot of this goes back to the community that you have, David. Is I was able to get to where I was and get started in copywriting, which then led to these other things because I joined a community early on, and that community was full of people that showed me what was possible. Because when you're leaving a very regimented life of the military, then law enforcement, it's almost the same thing. And then even the investigative world, it's the legal field. Private investigators are just like law firms. We have very strict everything's very strict. And then to go into a world of, well, I don't know when the next paycheck is coming. I don't have any strict boundaries on my work days. One day I might have to work for 10 hours. The next day I've got nothing to do, but you feel guilty because you feel like you should be working. It's Tuesday, and then you might have to work over the weekend. So anyway, to your point about mentors, I did meet a lot of people in those copywriting groups and marketing groups that were not, some of them were a couple of steps ahead of me and some of them were 10 years ahead of me. And I'm like, okay, well, if they're doing it and they're not any smarter than I am, or at least but you know what I mean? I felt comfortable being able to do that. So I think if I had to put my finger on one mentor, I would say a community, some form of online community where you can get advice from the guy who started a week before you to the guy or gal who started 10 years ahead of you, just to show you what's possible and that you're not alone.
Well, there's communities for just about everything, right? I mean, I have a background in sales enablement, and there's several, many sales enablement communities via LinkedIn or through other resources. So yeah, there's communities for everything. Communities for the children's books that I write, Wembley the Pug, right? Community for how to do that. You're so right. This is the theme. I've heard this a couple of times in some of my interviews. And so community, that's great. That's great. Well, we have our own little community here with ACE community that we're building. So that's part of the hope.
Absolutely, man. And there's a lot to be said about I'm threading the needle here on social media because there's a lot of bad things that happen when we're all on these all day, but it also connects us to 8 billion people or however many there are. It's probably 9 billion people on the planet by now. So that's another thing that, in the past, I'm 45 now. So when I was starting off, I didn't have this connection to the world. We had cell phones, but they were very limited. So now if somebody were to say, hey, I'm not really sure, I live in this place. It may be somebody in another country. I live here. Nobody around me is doing what I want to do. It's so foreign to me. I can't find anybody in my town or my community or my family. That's okay, because you can get on your phone or your computer and you can find those people. And they may be 10,000 miles away. We have access to everybody now. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's how I met with you guys. I keep coming back to that.
That's true. That's right. Yeah.
And
I'll show up with my RV over there at your place.
I can't wait. I can't wait till we figure out a way to get together and meet and have a little you, me, Corey, anybody else on the team. And I know that we've got some big ideas. So I'm just fired up and baby steps, right? And so when you feel overwhelmed, I guess I was having a conversation with someone, or this is just, I would love to hear your perspective because you're so busy, right? And you've got so many things that you've got on your plate, and you could easily be overwhelmed. Right. Even if, when I worked at Gong or I worked at Tableau, I had so many other things in my life that I had to accomplish and things that I needed to do. If I allowed it to get to me, I could easily be overwhelmed. And I mean, imagine someone, starting a business or trying to create something new and there's just so many things to do. How do you manage it? How do you balance when there's just so much to do? How do you maintain sanity and still are productive? Does that question make sense?
No, this is good, and I'm smiling because I'm gonna get very personal here, but I think it'll be helpful to everybody. So because I came from that very structured world and got into entrepreneurship, I put that in quotes because that gets thrown around so much, but that's what we're doing, And everybody's like, it's a roller coaster, it's all this and all that. What I mentioned before about not knowing where the next paycheck may come from, and then you're worried about if I don't. In the government, I could always say, he made that decision, I didn't. You know what I mean? There's always so many people around. You can just blame stuff on anybody. There's always a way to weasel your way out of things. But when the buck stops with you, that's a lot more pressure. I'm going to tell a story about a few years ago. I was in Mexico and I was taking on too many clients because it was a scarcity thing. Sometimes, and I was making a lot of money at the time. But I couldn't turn down anybody. They kept coming to me.
Good problem to have.
Good problem to have, except I started spreading myself too thin, then my work quality went down. And I'd read about people having meltdowns and burnout or a nervous breakdown. I've read about that before, and I'm like, that's not going to be me. Well, sure enough, and I didn't know it was happening until after it happened. Sure enough, I left Mexico, got back to Michigan where we stay in the summertime, and I couldn't get out of bed for like 3 days, and everything just I just had no energy. It was the strangest thing. I'm like, do I have some kind of sickness or something like that? And it just so happens that one of the people that I help produce a show for is a trauma therapist, a hypnotherapist. He's licensed. He's not like when I say hypnotherapist, he's not like quack like a duck kind of thing. He does real smoking cessation and all heroin type stuff.
Uh-huh.
So, and I worked for him, and I told him, and you had a nervous breakdown. And we went through all the symptoms, and sure enough, I did. So to your point, I had to learn the hard way. I gotten so busy at one point that I got myself into a spiral, and I literally came out the other end of that, and my workload got cut down by probably 3/4 of my own doing because I can't do this anymore. So after that experience now, and this is easier said than done, but after that experience, I go back to my checklist. I have this thing that I force myself to do, even if I don't feel like doing it in the moment. And what do I mean by that? So let's say I'm feeling a little overwhelmed tomorrow. I know that if I go get exercise and sunlight, could be a walk, it doesn't have to be an intense gym workout. I know that if I eat right, and I know everybody says meditation these days, but it really does work. And when I meditate, I lay down, I put the meditation app on. Sometimes I fall asleep. You're not supposed to. And I did a silent meditation retreat a couple summers ago. We could talk about that later, but that was a whole experience. So anyway, I have my go-to things that even if I don't feel it in the moment, those are stupid things. I'm like, no, I'm going to go through my checklist. I'm going to force myself to do it. And that kind of recenters me because in the past, through before that, my nervous breakdown, which it really was, through after that, I used to be a very, very heavy drinker. I don't know if we've had this conversation before, but I used to be 7 days a week, man. I would, and it wasn't necessarily getting drunk every night, but I lived in Florida, so, which is not an excuse, but it didn't help. Where, let's say it's Tuesday afternoon, I got off work early, I would go sit on a bar stool and type up my investigative reports and have a couple of beers.
Yeah.
But and on the weekends I would have blowout drinking. So even on my light days, I was still having more than I should. So I used to cope with that, and it just got out of control. So now I use tools, but I want people to understand that I screwed that up so many times, and it's so hard. And it's just a matter of finding what works. And generally what works for human beings is talking to somebody, putting the phone down for a little bit, getting some exercise, getting outside, eating right. And the thing is, and this is what I have to do with myself, take it 4 hours at a time. So again, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm feeling really stressed, this is a crushing anxiety for whatever, even if it doesn't make sense, I'm like, okay, well, let's just make it till noon, exercise, let's make it till noon, let's reevaluate. And then I take it from there to the end of the day. And chances are, we've all experienced this, that nothing is ever as bad as you think it's going to be in your mind. Next thing you know, the day's over, you're fine. But that's how I deal with the stress of it. Now, as I'm saying all this now, I have a light day. As soon as we're done here, I'm done for the day. I'm looking forward to not having to rush around this afternoon. But let's face it, there are days where we all have to be on, like that for 10 hours. And that's just the nature of it. And it's tough. And it's easy for me to say, well, just block off some meetings or don't take meetings or whatever. Well, if you're starting out, and let's say somebody listening to this is a new freelancer, they just don't have the luxury of just turning things down. So it's just a matter of just giving yourself a little bit of, self-care time and just scheduling things in and blocking off. Even if you have a full day of meetings, give yourself an hour for lunch. Just go walk around outside. And I know this sounds very simple and cliche, but I'm telling you, I heard it from other people and I was like, sure. And then now I'm doing it and it really works. So anyway, sorry for the long answer, but
No,
I
that's
go through
good.
this
I
a
mean,
lot.
you brought me back to when I was first starting my memory training business, when I was teaching memory training, and I had to pick up the phone and I had to schedule all of my meetings for myself, all my appointments, to try and schedule a free training to then sell my services. And some days, I mean, I'm on the phone all day and I'm either not talking to anybody or the people I talk to are hanging up the phone on me. And I'm just getting my teeth knocked in and my day's packed. And I have what I call the and principle. I have to have a certain amount of calls, a certain amount of people I talk to, and a certain amount of appointments set, and a certain amount of referrals. And if I don't get those, I call until I get them. And I have some days where I'm just getting my teeth knocked in. And you just made me think of this. It's like when those days happen, one of the best things I did for myself is I would take off my headset, I would turn off the computer, I would get up, and I would growl, and I would get furious at why aren't these people listening to me? And I'd walk around the neighborhood, and then I'd come back, and then almost, it didn't happen every time, but almost like clockwork, a few calls later or somewhere within that hour, I set up another appointment, and then I'd be setting 2 or 3. Anyways, so that's an overwhelmed moment just in the work and all the things and all the demands I put on myself. But then the value of stepping, no matter how busy you are or what's going on, take a moment, breathe. You have some meditation you do, you have some exercise for you, whatever that is for anybody, find that thing that kind of helps you get recentered and relaxed. And for me, at times, it's just getting up to your point, walk, breathe. And I listen to some spiritual music. I listen to a little bit of musicals that I like sometimes, and I walk the neighborhood or I'll walk my dogs, and then I come back and then I'm recentered. Anyways, so that just was a good point.
And I'm glad you brought that up about listening to something, because I also found that I would go for long walks and I would listen to podcasts or audiobooks. And what I found was that wasn't working for me to kind of recenter myself, because then you're thinking about that too. Because I love all these podcasts and some of them are very funny. But when I found I went from switching from audiobooks or podcasts to listening to music, I would come back refreshed, and I would feel like listening to a podcast, I feel like, I was just thinking that entire time too. It didn't give my brain a rest. But we do have a problem, and this is pretty common, where we wake up with a sense of productivity debt, where we feel like we're already behind until we hit a certain amount of whatever your thing is. Until you hit a certain amount of that, at the end of the day, you've failed. And it's really hard to reframe that to, hey, I'm going to get as much done as I can today. Maybe it's going to be 3 times what I normally do. Maybe it's going to be half of what I normally do. And that's going to be okay. And that's really hard to stick to, but that productivity thing is something I've been working on lately. So I'm a work in progress, man. I think about these things all day long. I'm glad we're talking about it.
I like that. I like the concept of productivity debt. Yeah, I mean, you wake up and you got this list of things that I have to be productive about. And I was like, oh, golly, what if I do it? What if I don't do it? How do I mean, it's going to be there tomorrow. It's going to be there.
Yes.
100%. I like that. Productivity debt. That's a great way to, a great concept.
Yeah. It helps to put it into words and frame it a little bit, man. Life is absurd. And like I said, this conversation could go in a million different directions. And I don't know if you want to, we could take it into some of my suggestions how to deal with the AI revolution.
This is great. I actually wrote that question down as, because you talked about this, right? You talked about having to pivot when you were doing copywriting. You're like, crap, AI just came in. And I mean, AI is a boulder down a hill, like Indiana Jones running away from it, right? And it's like, how do we navigate that? How do you navigate the world of AI? And, do you have any advice or any tips for people besides you need to learn every piece of AI tool? I mean, I guess that's part of the way to go, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you just said that, learning every tool. So in my mind, and again, this goes back to my neuroses. In my mind, I wake up every day and I'm behind, which is usually true now with AI. So in the morning, I just ask ChatGPT, what's new with you today? What are all the new AI developments today? So, but what I found is, and this should give people some peace of mind, what I've found is that depending upon what you're trying to do as a service provider, whether you're doing marketing work or any type of coaching, or presumably people watching this are probably in an adjacent industry to that, some type of teaching, educating, or publishing, things like that. What I've found, and it's been true 100% of the time, is that if you just take a little bit of time every day, could be 10, 15 minutes, sign up to a couple of newsletters. I forget the name of them now, we can link them, give you AI rundown for the day of whatever space that you're in. And what I've found is that just when I think like, oh my God, I'm so far behind, I'm not going to be able to get any new clients because AI is going to come take this, or this, there are just as many, if not more, potential clients out there and business opportunities out there for you of people that either A, don't know anything about AI, and I'll get a couple examples here in a second. B, they know they could go learn it themselves, but they just don't have time because like they've got other things going on. Or C, some clients, some potential clients do. To give you an example, two examples. One of them, I do a lot of e-commerce work, and some of those people use Shopify and Klaviyo and other things. And a lot of them will tell me like, well, can I just do that myself? I'm like, go ahead, knock yourself out. I've got enough stuff going on. But I do, and I'll give you another example from Florida. There's a roofing company that we work for there, and the guy's a multimillionaire, great guy to work for. He knows that his team could learn to do some of the marketing functions and automations and other things that I keep up with AI. And I tell him, and he's like, no, I know I could learn to do it. That's you. I pay you to do that. I just don't have the mental bandwidth for that. So what my advice to anybody who thinks that, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the market it's hard to get into, but it's not that hard to stand out. If you can put a human face to things, and if you can communicate well with, which is a lot of times where you come in, helping people with that, if you can communicate well and be the bridge between the AI platforms and the business, then you'll be totally fine. Because again, the people that want to go learn it on their own and do it on their own, that's just not your client. That's okay. There are a lot of people that are like, just tell me what I need to do here, but they also love the human connection. So they also love talking to me, and then knowing that I'm doing all that, setting up automations. Now, but to stay ahead, like I mentioned, I just sign up for a couple different newsletters. I think one of them is called superpower.com as an example. Go to YouTube every day. There's people that have YouTube channels that are trying to get SEO and traction, that they literally post every day. They'll post short or a bunch of clips about what's new in AI today. So it feels overwhelming at the start. There's this huge mountain in front of you. How am I going to learn all this? It'll take you one afternoon and one weekend to catch up to everybody else, and you'll be totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those what you call a late adopter. Typically, there's those people who jump in. I get a sense that you are the time. I mean, other things I'll jump right in, but when it comes to technology, I'm usually waiting for others. So it took me a long time to just get on ChatGPT and then Grok and then, use these AI functions. And so I hear what you're saying. Little by little, learn something a little at a time, just like anything, right? I mean, if you learn something new a little bit every single day or even every week, one new thing, look at the end of the year, 52 weeks later, you have expanded your knowledge on a topic. So if you wait, you're going to be in the same spot you are now if you wait. So simply with talking to people who are writing kids books, they're like, I want to write a book. I've had an idea to write one for 8 years. Well, it's going to be 8 years later, and you're still going to be thinking about it. You need to start writing it. Do it. Yeah. So start learning something, and that's the ultimate. I'm proud of myself. I've been doing some AI stuff, so.
Anybody who could write a book and get to the end of it with not knowing the payoff, because there's so much, the feedback loop we have these days is we say something and then we get something back. So having the patience to write a book, I always really look up to that, because I'm like, because you could sit and work on something for a year and a half, and you're confident that people will like it, but you don't know for sure, until you put it out there. Yeah. And one of my things that I tell people, again, easy for me to say now, but I use this to get here, is everything seems like just so far in the distance and so overwhelming and so insurmountable in the moment. Oh, I want to start an online business. I want to do what Lee does, whatever. But it's just like, oh, it could take me 2 months to learn how to do this, 6 months to set this up, and a year. The thing is, 6 months from now, you're going to look back and the time goes by like that. Mm-hmm. So it only feels distant when you're in front of it. But on the backside of it, you're like, oh, I wish I'd done this a year before. And I'm sure you had the same experience writing. Like, oh, God, I could have started this 6 months earlier and been 100%. Done with it, Yeah.
100%. I mean, now I've got 20 ideas of stories, and I just need the time and the budget to be able to make them happen. And so, now I know how to do it. It's once you get started, you're like, oh man, you're right. I should have done this 20 years ago,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I wasn't
Yeah.
in the spot. Okay. This is good. Let's shift because I do want to talk about your time as in the military a little bit. First off, thanks for your service. You said you joined really like you were 18 or 19, so you right out of high school pretty much?
17 actually. So
Okay.
I'm from a small town in northern Minnesota. I grew up on a horse ranch there. And now I forget this story, so this is kind of silly now thinking about it. But I didn't do well in school all the way up through middle school, intermediate, whatever, elementary, middle, and high school. I didn't do very well, and I'm convinced now that I just wasn't interested. I know they label that as ADHD and all that. It's all real things, but I just didn't care. I was smart enough to do it. I just didn't care. And I almost failed in high school, but the summer before graduation, a friend of mine he didn't have a car and I did, needed a ride to the recruiter. And I gave him a ride and he was overweight and I wasn't. So I ended up signing up that day and he didn't. So I gave him a ride there. And then of course you go to the recruiting station in northern Minnesota. It's a small place and it's got the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines are all in the same shopping center. And this is I love all services, but I looked at the Marine Corps uniform. I'm like, that's cool. I want to do that. So
Yes.
there wasn't some grand plan here for me to do this. I just, gave my fat buddy a ride to the thing, and I ended up signing up. But here's the weird mindset I had is I walked out of that recruiting office knowing that the next summer after graduation I was going to go to boot camp, and I was a sense of relief. How silly that was! It was like a sense of relief because now I didn't have to look for colleges and deal with my GPA. So in a weird way, I thought I was taking the easy way out. Like I don't have to apply for college. Like, this is wonderful. So I had that mindset all the way through the next year, and even my senior year, my grades were so bad that I almost didn't make it, but my teachers knew that I was going to go into the Marine Corps, so they kind of pushed my grades along because they knew it was good for me. It wouldn't have been good for me to stay and fail. So I really thank them for that. So this was 1998. Bill Clinton was in office. There wasn't much going on in the world. Things were peaceful. There were skirmishes here and there. Well, it was a 4-year enlistment. So of course, 3 years into my enlistment, 9/11 happens. So because I'd gone in the infantry, not expecting not expecting any problems in the world. So we were already deployed. We were in Japan, which is not that close to the Middle East, but it's a little bit closer deployment-wise than the States when 9/11 happened. So we ended up, being the first unit to go over there. So that was interesting. It's when I tell the story now, 25 something years later. Now some people may say, oh well, they view it in the light of the most recent deployments. People are tired of going to Afghanistan. We're tired of being in Iraq. We were there too long. All those other things. But back then, you remember how patriotic everybody was after 9/11. The whole world was behind us. And we had just spent 3 years training for something, and we were 21 years old. We finally got to do what we trained to do. So it was exciting. So when people ask, were you scared or whatever, we were just thrilled. We were also dumb. We're men, we're idiots, and we were young. So it was the most exhilarating time. And fortunately, I came out of that unscathed. I got hurt a little bit, but that was very. I'm very proud of that. It was very exciting to be like the first that were there, and I was not. It was my choice, but it just happened to be that way. And a lot of people will say, "Well, thank you for doing that and all these other things, and I appreciate that." But I'm more thankful to the people who enlisted after 9 because they knew they were going to war. I just happened to just be in there, you know what I mean? So I have a lot of respect for those that were like, the war happened, the towers got hit, and they went and enlisted. I'm like, that takes a whole nother level of nerve to do that. So anyway, that was, my first 2 years in the Marine Corps. I was in Washington, D.C. It's kind of a weird Forrest Gump story. I ended up on the drill team there, if anybody's seen the movies, the United States Marine Corps Silent Drill Platoon, and I ended up opening doors at the White House for a little bit. So I ended up doing all the cliche things. Now, unfortunately, that was lost on me because, again, I was a young kid, and it was just arduous, boring, stand in my uniform all day kind of thing work. Looking back on it now, I wish I had been more present. But name anybody who's been as present as they wish they had been at the time. So
Well, hindsight is what hindsight's 2020. It's perfect. Look back, but now that helps you be more present now because of that experience, I imagine. And so, okay, this would be interesting because there's only a small portion of people that are in the military. And maybe people that are listening to this, we can appreciate that, but I'd be interested to hear, thinking back to your time in the military and then what you do now, do you see any parallels in that the experience that the military brought you that helps you and serves you in your career? I mean, I can imagine. I haven't been in the military, but I was raised by a military dad, and there's certain things like discipline and, Admiral, I can't remember, it talks about make your bed in the morning. And, there's all these little things there's a great book called Make Your Own Bed.
I know what you're talking about.
How you start your day. But I mean, can you think of some parallels from your military time that still translate to you?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm actually really bad at them. Because one of them, like you mentioned, discipline, which is a broad term, but it really comes down to, especially in being a remote entrepreneur, or just to being an entrepreneur, not to be remote, but being responsible for your day and yourself is pretty tough. So having the discipline to okay, I'm going to work for this, get these amount of tasks done today. And it doesn't mean that you have to get up at 5 a.m. and do them. You could, and I've learned this over the years, I'm better off working when my brain is ready to work. So if I wake up in the morning and it's super early, but I'm just I just can't get into this yet, then I put it off until I'm ready, when I have the luxury to do that. And some mornings I wake up at 6 a.m. and I have to get this laptop open. I have stuff I want to do right now. So it's procrastination, which is still hard for me now, but I think that helped a lot. I was this needs to be done. And I will tell you that this is actually a good point. I'm glad you brought this up, because I got into copywriting. I was 40 years old, opened my LLC, started giving myself titles that I probably didn't deserve yet, because I'm I could do that. I'm a chief copywriter now, which I ended up being for another company. And what I found was, because I wasn't working quote unquote that hard, but I would show up to meetings, even the ones I didn't want to be at, because FaceTime is very important, especially for big employers. I would update people. So this again goes back to the discipline part. I have a checklist of clients that I'm going to send them a little note today, even if I don't have anything ready for them to review. Just say I'm checking in with you, kind of thing. And I found out it wasn't very hard to stand out. And in the beginning, when I was in those copywriting groups among people that were much more advanced and making a lot more money and more senior than I was in the group, but then they wanted to avoid the AI thing, and they weren't as communicative with their clients as they should have been. Well, fast forward 3 years, and those people were coming to me for jobs, because I had ended up rising up to a chief copywriting position at a large agency here in the U.S. And so anyway, that reminds me of that. And it wasn't like I was getting up and I was grinding and I was making myself miserable. I just had a series of things that I made sure I did every day, just disciplined routine, making sure I knocked those things out, and didn't just let my week get away on me. Because as you know, when you kind of are responsible for yourself, there's tomorrow's Friday, David. There's nobody saying that I can't go take a 12-pack to the beach tomorrow. Nobody can stop me. You know what I mean? So I guess, that's the biggest through line, I think, is, hey, get the job done and then go do whatever you want.
Do you write a list? I mean, I'm personally, maybe because of my age, people have apps, but I'm a list person. I'm a list and a check off kind of person. I have a buddy of mine, Roger Sipe, who owns a company called Freedom Personal Development. He's got this kind of power group that he goes with. He picks, the big rocks that he needs to do, and he prioritizes the most important ones to do, and then he tries to get all of them done, but some days it's only the one big rock that he gets. There's another phrase, and for whatever reason it's eluding me. It'll show up in just a second, but there's an actual phrase he has for it. But how do you typically tackle a day? Is it the day before you write it out? What's going on? This is my for the week list. It's a sheet of paper I carry with me.
This is a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to open up something on my phone here, and I am not sponsored by them, but I use a project management platform called ClickUp, which nobody needs to remember that. But if anybody needs help with it, yeah, they're pretty good. But I also have another app on my phone. It only goes on my phone. It's also on my computer, but it's not connected to ClickUp or anything else. It's called Todoist, and it has I know it's hard to see, but it has, similar to your list there, if something came up, even in the middle of this call that I had to do something, I would go in, if you told me, hey, we need this done, I would hit add task, and it'll let you prioritize from high priority down to low priority. And then if you roll over to the next day, it rolls over and re-triages those things. So yes, to your point, I don't trust my memory, even though it's pretty good. I don't leave it to chance anymore. And going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about standing out, I've seen my friends falter because they've forgotten to do something simple, and I never do, because I always put it in my to-do list. And again, it could be written or it could be whatever, but yes, you 100% have to write a list out and then mark, this has to be done. And I have those, same thing. I have things on my list that this has to be done today no matter what. This should be done. And then the rest of it's it'd be nice if it got done, but if it doesn't get, exactly. Sure.
So Todoist.
Yes. I love
Yeah,
it.
okay.
It's free. It's free. I love it.
No, I love it. Okay, because that sounds very similar to what I'm doing. I like the power of writing it down, and I think about it, write it down. It seems like it becomes more, but typing it out is also equally good. That's
Yeah,
good.
and not to plug them one more time, but I have the desktop app too. And if you go to a website, and you want to bookmark it, they have a little Chrome extension. You click it and it saves it. So like, what was that AI training that I want to look up, or what was that circle thing that I wanted to look up? Well, oh, that's right, it saved it for me. So yeah, it's perfect. Yeah,
That's
but
great.
URL. Yeah.
Well, okay. I know we could talk a lot more, and maybe we'll save it for a part two. I think this is probably a good spot. But
Sure.
man, this has been great. I had a list of questions, and the conversation went in such a great direction. I love when I have some ideas of what I want to talk about, and then it pivots because the conversation's so good. So thank you. If anybody wants to reach out to you, obviously you've got a lot of background. They can check you on LinkedIn. But what's the best way to reach it? Would it be LinkedIn the best way to connect with you?
I would say LinkedIn, and we didn't get into all the multitude of businesses that I'm a part of, and I'm a partner in some, I own others, and I'm just a worker bee in others. So I would say LinkedIn, and I'll make sure we put that below. And yeah, just shoot me a message. I'm guarded with my time to an extent, but I also get a lot of energy helping other people. Nothing would make me happier than if somebody reached out and had a question about something, and that's how I want to start my day. If I could help somebody else first. So please reach out on me there, and of course,
I'm a testament. Lee is as good as, all the things you were talking about. Literally, I get little messages you on our WhatsApp kind of thread that we have. Almost daily we're staying in touch. Even if there's not a lot going on between us, I really appreciate you. I value your insight and your expertise and your energy and your just service-minded attitude. I can't wait to repay you. You deserve so much more than what you're currently getting from me, and I can't wait till you get a lot more out of it. I really appreciate you so much. Thanks, Lee, for being on the call. Reach out to Lee if you've got questions. You want to reach out to him on LinkedIn, but stay tuned for our next ACE show. We've got a couple more interviews happening that are coming up soon, and I think we're going to be on YouTube soon. And you're already on YouTube if you're watching this, so you're already there. But may you all ace your life. We'll see you soon.